Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at Journey to Grace Counseling for our monthly Ask a Therapist event. Before we hop in today with our fun and exciting topic, I do want to go over a couple of disclaimers for us. The first disclaimer is this event is not a substitute for professional mental health therapy. While we will discuss mental health related topics, please note that this is an educational and supportive environment, not a clinical or therapeutic session. No personal medical or mental health advice will be given. At any point you need professional help, we strongly encourage you to seek support from a licensed therapist, counselor, or mental health provider, including potentially us, if you do feel so drawn to the different things that we're sharing and you may just like our personality. We will be, sharing our thoughts and opinions on things, but again, we are not giving advice inside of this event today. And I do want to make sure I make that very clear. Confidentiality is important, but this is a public space. So while we do want you to feel safe here, we cannot guarantee complete confidentiality in a group setting, especially because this is not a clinical therapy session. So please be mindful of what you choose to share aloud. You are welcome to engage at your own comfort level. Part of that as well is that this will be recorded and will be attached to our website as well. And so please be mindful of that as well. If at any time you feel overwhelmed, we invite you to take a break, step out, or check in with one of our team members. We are happy and here to support you. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into our fun and exciting topic of the day. We are going to talk about mental health implications across the lifespan of social media use and just the different trends and things we've seen among our clients who use social media, the things we've seen in ourselves, with our families and friends. And we're just going to kind of talk about the state of social media as it pertains to mental health as of now. And so I have a couple of questions and prompts, but Frederica and I, we're going to bounce back and forth. And we're just going to have an honest and open conversation about where we're seeing, from our lens and perspective, where we're seeing social media. And so, Frederica, the first question that I have is what general themes do you recognize among your client population with social media use?
Well, I'll start off with the client population that I typically see. So that might give a little bit more context. So the population that I usually see is mid 30s to middle age, maybe 35 to 50 and up. And so that's going to really color the answer that I give. Like, nobody uses Facebook anymore, but this group does. Okay. Facebook and the Facebook book groups rule. And a lot of times the in social media engagement is based on life stages, whether it's parenting, parenting teenagers, um, like what is blended households, divorce care, even caring for an older adult, like that sandwich generation. You got your littles, your parents, and then you in the
Mm-hmm.
same household. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
midlife changes, or some would say crisis. We'll just say self-reflection, midlife self-reflection, and any of those things along the way. Also, like for career changes, sites like
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn or another one that
Mm.
escapes me right now. So much of
Yeah.
my the clients that I see would be using it to like kind of better their lives or self-improvement, or to
Mm-hmm.
connect with people that they don't necessarily get to see
Mm-hmm.
maybe from um, high school, college
Mm.
reunions, because we're around that same age as well,
Yeah.
of reuniting for those
Yeah.
20s and 30 reunions. Lord. Anyway, so so that's pretty much what I see from my clients. Some also use it for like their news and events, but for the most
Mm.
part, I see them using it for more lifestyle things.
Well, you mentioned using it for news, and so I'm wondering, for your specific population, do you think them using it for news, especially just kind of given the current climate that we're in, do you think that that impacts some of their presenting concerns or the things that they're processing inside of session?
I haven't seen it as much.
Okay.
Again, with the people that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
more so I see them working through like anxiousness or whatever, but not necessarily the
Mm,
things that come up um,
right.
around the 35, especially later 40, 45, 50. Pretty much have gotten an idea of how the world turns, if you remember
Mm, yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah,
far
yeah.
from back in the day. So
Yeah.
it's not so much like them
Mm,
getting the news information, is more so from this information, how do I want to handle this? How does this impact my life?
mm-hmm.
So, but it does bring about, like I said, that anxiousness, that wonder, like, is this really where we at right now? So it's
Mm-hmm.
more of a I remember when, and what am I gonna do to keep
Uh,
me where I like to be, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. It's more kind of like feeling settled.
Yeah. Mm.
And how do I keep feeling settled? Like, yes, chaos is erupting around me, but I want to
Hmm.
continue to feel settled. So
That
how
because
do
this
I
out
do
here can't rock
that?
me, okay? Because my mind cannot be lost. I will not lose it behind what they say.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
thinking for my population too, and so I work with couples, work with millennial and Gen Z couples and
Mm.
adults, some adolescents, um, and as far as what I see with my clients and social media, the big thing is a lot of like, what's the word? Therapizing, like
Oh, yeah,
they're
that.
like the professionals. I don't quite know if we should call them mental health professionals without proper training and credentials, but
Maybe
the
mental health influencers, because
yes, that's a great one.
yeah,
Yes, mental health influencers who may or may
may
not
not.
have credentials or education. Um, I get a lot of clients who say, I saw this on TikTok. That's typically the main one.
Yeah.
I saw this on TikTok, or, I saw where I should take this attachment, not survey, what is it called? Not the
Questionnaire.
yeah, questionnaire, yes.
Hmm.
And it tells me that this is my attachment style. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
back up. Where did you even get the website from? Oh, I saw it on TikTok, or I saw it on Instagram or whatever, right? And it's like, oh,
Hmm.
let's back this up a little bit.
Mm.
Because everything we see, while yes, it's meant to be helpful, we have to make sure that it's validated and it's a reliable
Hmm.
source for us to be getting information from. And so when I think of my clients, that's really where I see a lot of the influence with clients coming in with influence.
Hmm.
Um, and how it can be used inside of their sessions, which one can be very helpful because I've learned things off of TikTok that I'm like, oh, let me go research this further. I haven't heard of this, like, let me research it. But that's the
Mm.
part that I think clients miss, is well, at least the ones I work with sometimes, the part
Yeah.
that they miss
Mhm.
is, now let me go research it and understand what I'm researching and understand what I'm reading and understand, what the implications of the research is that I'm reading. That's the piece that can sometimes get lost.
Mm.
And I have to unpack that with clients. And so that's how I've seen it at least show up with my clients and my age population with social media. Now, do you have any different experiences based off of like friends and family, or just based off of life outside of your clinical work?
You mean as far as them bringing information to the session, or
Or
social media in general?
social media in general, like maybe among your client
Mm.
population, so that 35, and up age range, but
Mhm.
outside of a clinical setting. So with family members, with friends,
Mhm.
with, colleagues or whatever, how are you noticing their use of social media?
Well, what I have noticed among, just not even just family and friends, but being out in the environment,
Mm,
just doing regular everyday things, I see a lot of people who have their phone
mm.
in their hand, or they have now we're back to the headphones, the big ones.
Yes, yes.
So the big headphones on, or the
Mm,
AirPods in their ear. And so I've noticed like there is a what seems to be like a constant consuming of
mm,
external data, external
mhm,
information. And one of the concerns I have with that is that we as a human organism. And I think that's the part that we don't always highlight as much. It's like being a human organism, the organism cannot handle that much information. It's information overload.
Yes.
I have come across people and, social media, websites or talks, podcasts. It talks a lot about information dumping, but it talks about it from a very intellectual standpoint and not necessarily from an organism standpoint. What is it doing to you physically? What is the information you're hearing doing to your actual cells and tissues? Because when we hear about trauma and tragedy and stress and strain, it literally puts stress on the organism. So I see people, because I observe like the body language and stuff. Most of the time the face is very flat, very stern. There's not a whole lot of life on the person's face. And so for the generation that I work with, I see that it can kind of produce more of a stressor to have that much information coming in and out when the body is already, lived.
Yes.
Be kind to us, like I may not look like I fit in that group, but
well, I took some notes as you were talking because you dropped some amazing gems. And one thing that I wanted to highlight is when you said the information overload, like we're constantly inundated with something, even if it's music, right? Because music is still, we're consuming something and it's still media and it's still noise and it's artificial noise, right? It's not like you're going outside and you're hearing the birds chirping or, things like that. And so one thing I wrote down is and correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not the correct percentage, but from my understanding, like we can only use 10% of our brain. Like we only have the ability to tap into about 10%, give or take, of course, of our brain's capacity. And we are using that. We are taking that to the brim.
With stuff that we don't even need to know.
Yes, with information that is not necessarily required that we know. But that's also too, right? Like we can only use so much of our brain. Our bodies were designed that way to protect us. Because it's almost like the more you know, the better off you're not necessarily. Like you're not necessarily better off knowing more. Like your brain has a capacity for a reason. Because we can't, as humans, like you said, we can't handle being able to know that much information and still be able to function in a healthy way. And so I wrote that down, but then I also thought about what you said about we're constantly consuming. And I think we think of consuming and being in a consumerist society of buying something and physically spending money to physically get something in return. But we don't think about the cost of just constantly consuming noise, whether that's music or a podcast or even the things that are meant to be helpful. Too much of anything can always become a bad thing.
Look.
And go ahead.
Well, in keeping with that, like you said, consuming something good, if we find a podcast that we love and we're just kind of binging that podcast, whether we're typing on a report or doing something with our family or cooking, one, we're not actively engaged in the thing that we're doing, like we're actually engaged in. So our mind is somewhere else, but our body. And so it can create that separation between our body and our head. And so like our body is like, well, when we try to check in with our feelings, try to check in with what's going on, that communication has kind of gotten strained or even impacted. So we really have to be careful. It's not to scare anyone from using social media. We just have to get back to the conversation of talking about balance or even harmony. What is the level for a person? Like currently, for myself, just a little transparency, walking through an unmarried season because it's gonna change. Okay. So as a person who spends more time by herself or with herself, when friends and everything are gone. Sometimes that can create a opportunity. Social media creates an opportunity for connection. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so for me, I have to be mindful, like, this is not just about me getting online or me getting some good information. Is this actually coming in to help me, meet one of
Mm-hmm.
those actual needs, unmet needs, emotional needs? So this
Right.
conversation could really get real big if
It
it.
can. That's so I'm gonna try to reel us in because
Yeah, I'm like, pull me
already
back, pull me back.
yeah, I'm already firing on all cylinders right now because like you said, for Derica, this not to discourage social media. I love social media. I have
Hmm.
such a special appreciation for social media, but I would say that my appreciation for it grew the more I started, and I'm gonna get into this later, so I'm just gonna drop this little nugget. Like the more I started teasing out the nuances of what's helpful information, what isn't, what's real and what's fake.
Mhm.
I actually gained a healthier and a different level
Mm,
of appreciation for using it. I'm going to get into that later because I have a whole
good.
trope on the things that aren't real, on influencer culture and how a lot of the times it's not real. But
Mhm.
hey, Monique, thank you so much for joining us. I want to take a minute to make sure that we acknowledge you.
Mm.
Right now, for Derica and I, we're really just getting started. We're like on question number one. And we're talking about how social media has shown up in our specific client population with our clients who come into session, but then also how we're seeing it with other people in our lives, like within our client population. And so, please share your client population with us and how you've seen social media show up.
Yeah, so I work primarily with couples and adult individuals, women of color, and I definitely see it show up in the form of like self-esteem issues, like
Mm-hmm.
lots of comparison. So you see people on socials and like specifically like with getting married, right? And these proposals and stuff that goes on, like people kind of like see other people's lives and then they have like this time frame about what's
Yes.
supposed to go on. Like I'm supposed to get married in this time frame, or I'm supposed to have this grand proposal, or this person's life is just so great. They have this degree, they're working this job, and then
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm stuck in this situation. And so yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
shows up that way a lot, like in the form of comparison, and that
Mm-hmm.
brings the self-esteem in a negative way because feeling like like you're not where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know, Monique, we work with similar clients as far as the age and doing couples work. And
Mhm.
that comparison piece speaks so loud,
Mhm.
especially among like the younger millennial Gen Z populations, right? Where you see this certain lifestyle or you see people your age who maybe do or do not have a degree, right? And they're making millions of dollars. They're moving into houses every year. See, now my own stuff is coming up. They're moving into these big, beautiful, brand new houses every year, and life looks good, and new cars, and the white picket fence with the little puppy in the backyard, and it's hard to not compare yourself whenever you see it. And with that too, I also work with the perinatal population, and a big
Mm,
one on social media is mom shaming or parent shaming.
mm, mhm,
And I haven't explicitly had clients come in with that concern per se, but just in my own use of social media, being a new mom of two, I've had to be very careful in the type of content that even I consume because there is a lot of mom shaming and
mm,
parent shaming that happens on social media. And everybody got an opinion. Like your family already got an opinion. And now you got hundreds and thousands of strangers who also have opinions too. And it could become so overwhelming. And like you said, Federica, you're consuming so much and it's hard to filter through what you do want to keep, what you want to let go of, what you want to like set it and forget it. And so that's just something else that I see
mm.
too is with the comparison among my population as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, I feel the same way about myself. It's just the comparison. You can fall into that trap because you
Yes.
go on there and then you see like your friends, your colleagues, people that's around the same age as you, people that you
Mm-hmm.
went to school with, and they're just doing all these different things. And it's just like, well, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know from personal experience, just all of that. It's
Yeah.
tough. So it's kind of hard to navigate. Like, yeah, I want to be on social media, but do I also want to feel some of the stressors that come with it, and how do I balance it and
Mm-hmm.
choose wisely what I intake and what I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all brought up some great stuff. That image of success,
Yes.
the what else? The delayed gratification versus instant, want to
Yes.
be able to achieve it. And one more thing for the population that I
Mm-hmm.
work with is the perception of aging.
Mhm.
Social
Mm-hmm.
media is often
Mm-hmm.
very young oriented, youthful,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's not as kind to the aging process because it is a process,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can
Mm-hmm.
sometimes create anxiety around what's relevant and what does that mean for the individual that is consuming it at their 40, 50,
Mm-hmm.
60, 70, plus years of life. So I think we all have
Yes.
some experiences with social media that has been really good, really helpful. I'm of the generation that got to see it get started, right?
Yes.
So I was like, we didn't have it. I can really say we didn't have it back in my day. Like it was like, girl. But growing up and being able to see all of these things
Yeah.
happen, it has really caused me to be sometimes reminiscent of times before where
Right. Right.
I was watching something on social media that was having a person of the Gen X and all that and before generation was having a conversation with a millennial or Gen Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, so y'all went to events and nobody had a phone to call, like you just let your kids run around. And I was like, well, that wasn't crazy. Like, was it? So, but
At the time, it wasn't.
at the time it wasn't. And those are some of the things that we did. But what it created was relationships and people watching
Mm-hmm.
everyone. And you knew how
Mm-hmm.
far to go play because those were discussions that y'all had
Mm-hmm.
had. So, and social media cannot reproduce that.
Mm-hmm.
So how we
Mm-hmm.
how we're able to kind of again bring it back up that word, bring harmony, bring balance, bring
Mm-hmm.
some boundaries, some limits around it would
Mm-hmm.
be really great.
The last point on this, Federica, because you dropped another gem before we have to rein it back in a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned like social media maybe not being friendly, people
Hmm.
of the clients or the population that you work with, from like a technological standpoint of what's in and
Hmm.
what's out, figuring out what the trends are. But I want to take it even a step further than that and say social media and the rhetoric around social media. And I don't know if we've been keeping up with social media lately, is also not friendly to the
Hmm.
aging process, and especially for women.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there is this connotation around aging. And, there's different posts and things like that talking about older women this, older men that. Like you're saying this, but you're old. Like, and it's almost like an insult. Like they use
Hmm.
aging and being older as an insult, especially like once you start getting over 30, right? It becomes insulting to be old, and we all know society is what sets the beauty standards. But I can just imagine too, like what some of that rhetoric is that your client population is seeing, on top
Yeah.
of also trying to figure out how to navigate it.
Right. It can be a challenge. I think you brought up Monique, self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
self-concept, how we introduce love to ourselves. That's not a tangible thing, but those intangibles through the conversation that we have, through the things that we consume, like social
Mm-hmm.
media, not food, but social media and entertainment, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it does. And I don't know that even myself recognizes it as much as an influence in sessions when I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
with my clients, but it's definitely something I'm gonna consider a little more,
Mm-hmm.
especially as I'm working with people in the midst of a life transition, whether that's divorce, whether that is,
Mm-hmm.
um, getting back out in the dating. And that's really where I see it. Like those who are trying to get back
Mm-hmm.
into dating after either been married
Mm-hmm.
or, all those things. So it is an
Yeah.
interesting boat out here.
Yeah, and I want to even transition us because we've been talking about it, and so I think it's a great segue to transition us to the next question, which is based off of your client population. What are some things that you have found both helpful and harmful as it relates to social media with your population and specifically?
Well, I could just recap what I already said. So with what I've seen helpful is that reconnection and sometimes helping it bring people together that have not had much contact or past relationships, which hopefully are positive, some are not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be a source of good to bring people together, and it can also bring strain if it brings
Mm-hmm.
marital issues. If this person is still feeling like they
Mm-hmm.
have some long lost love they need to connect with, or
Mm-hmm.
even seeing someone who may have bullied them in the past and bringing up some of those things because that comes up
Mm-hmm.
more so in the counseling area when we start talking about
Mm-hmm.
like what were some of the things that happened as a child, and they're like,
Right.
yeah, and they tried to friend me on Facebook. Like, girl, delete it. Let's take your power back. I'm gonna tell them. Yeah, you can tell them, but you risking a lot. Just delete it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other things is the other part of that is it gives illusion of connection. Like you're in these big groups
Mm,
of people, you have
mm,
thousands of friends, and sometimes it can feel like you're known, but really you're not known.
mm-hmm.
The other piece is the ways that I've seen it come up, and you brought up kind of like the political, get the word out,
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
political scene and the things that are happening here, people
Mm-hmm.
really getting hit hard about how things have been described,
Right.
the groups, the factions that are being kind of split out from things. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe this, then you're being canceled. And these are people who have had careers, who have built families, who are maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes on their second, third career,
Mm-hmm.
and really have not a lot of time for the game. So either they're going to believe it or not, kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes being able to shift those perspectives to say, well, maybe if we consider a little bit more there, and sometimes the thought line is a little more rigid,
Mm-hmm.
so being able to introduce thought challenging
Mm-hmm.
and creativity, opportunity in some of those areas
Mm-hmm.
can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes.
And as you say that, Federica, the thing that I wrote down the thing that helps is what hurts.
Mm,
And whenever you mention like, yes, you're increasing connection, but it's a not a false sense of connection, but it's an illusion of
mhm,
connection, which because you're relying on it now so heavily, now you're
mhm,
really not getting that connection that that you're truly seeking. And
right,
it goes back to what I said earlier, like the thing, that too much of anything
mm,
can become a bad thing.
mhm,
And what I noticed with it, especially like among the perinatal population, is um what's the word I want to use? Like I'll just say like somehow I ended up on the SIDS side of TikTok, like sudden infant.
oh,
I don't know how I got there, but I ended up on that side of TikTok and having at the time it was 3 months, 3 month old baby. Like obviously my little sirens are going off. It was great to see people in the comments talking about their experiences, and it was great seeing, how all these strangers can come together and have a common experience and provide each other support and at the same time my anxiety. shot through the roof. I
That
don't think I
part.
slept that night. Like, I don't think I slept that night. And that's something that I see among my client populations as well is like, yes, you're building this connection. Yes, you're finding like-minded individuals to support you. Yes, you're finding, community, especially if you have a marginalized identity, right? Where it could be hard when you go outside and step out your front door to find people who can relate and connect to you. Like, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. That's something that is so helpful and so beautiful. And that's why people were so upset about TikTok getting shut down because it's like, this was like literally their community. Like, this was their
Mhm.
people. And at the same time, when we're consuming so much, like we talked about earlier, it could also raise anxiety. It can increase
Mhm.
depression. It can increase the comparison, right? It can increase the lack of, gratification or gratitude that we have for the things that for the things we already have inside of our lives. And
Mhm.
that's something that I see a lot and that I have to do with my population is a lot of gratitude work and like let's talk about what
Mhm.
you're grateful for. Let's
Mhm.
talk about what you do have. Like let's shift our energy there versus talking about the things that you don't have and that you don't really want, but you just want it because you see somebody else have it. You really don't want that.
Mhm.
Like, come on now. Anyway, I digress. How about you, Monique?
Um, I say like a good thing about social media is like it's a way for people to decompress, right? So people like you have a
Mm,
long day at work, then you go on your phone and you're finding these videos that's interesting to you, you're laughing. I get a good kiki out of social
yes.
media. And I feel like nowadays that's what I go on for. I don't go on for anything else. It's just like I know something's gonna make me laugh. So I think that's good because like that the laughter part is good for your soul. So that is
Mm-hmm.
something that I feel like is helpful about social media. Also, as you guys discussed before, like that connection piece. Oftentimes, when I have clients that are struggling like with not having friends and or they're fearful of building friends or they don't know how, I suggest, well, what about like certain groups that you can join? There's social media groups, there's
Mm-hmm.
Facebook groups with
Mm-hmm.
people that might be like-minded or even
Mm-hmm.
in the same area as you. So maybe you can try that to maybe meet up and get some friends, something like that. So that's a way that it can be helpful is just connecting people in ways
Mm-hmm.
where you probably wouldn't have gotten that chance to connect with those people. But then on the other side, I've noticed that with social media, specifically with couples, it can cause some trust issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's messaging you, who's in your comments,
Mm-hmm.
why'd you respond, like different things
Mhm.
like that. So I guess some boundaries need to be set up where that is concerned, especially with couples, so they can feel comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
social media.
As you say that, Monique, I'm thinking back to a couple that I worked with, whether it's in my professional life or just people I know in my personal life, that they will fuss if there's like some sort of picture, maybe a risque picture, if you will, of an influencer of sorts, and partner A likes it, and then partner B sees the like, it's like boom, right there for the whole world to see that you like this this picture. I've seen that cause just in my personal life with different people and different
Mhm.
couples and
Yeah.
professionally as well. I think you bring up such a great point about, like about trust in social media. But also, Federica, you mentioned it too, that delayed gratification, right? That
Mhm.
whatever you want is right there, right? And
Mhm.
so I work with a lot of couples who experience infidelity, and y'all would be surprised, or maybe not, the number of relationships that happen and they start on social media
Mhm.
because that delay, you don't have to work hard, right? Like there's all of these dating sites, there's these dating apps. I
Yeah,
think Facebook even has Facebook dating
it
attached
does.
to the profile now. And so it's like everything is right at your fingertips. Literally, the world
Mhm.
is at your fingertips.
Mhm.
And that can cause some destruction in your personal
Well,
life
when
and
we
your
used to say
relationship.
that years ago, that meant you could travel. That meant you could enter into a book. That meant that a lot of the barriers that people will run into to getting information, connecting with other people, were was there and is now broken down. And
Right.
social media has helped do that to a greater degree. but as we've all said, it cannot replace those natural, organic ways in
Mm-hmm.
which we are to connect. It just
Mm-hmm. And I think too, from a biological perspective, like humans are wired for connection.
mm-hmm,
We are literally meant to connect with each other. Like we are meant to physically connect with each other. And so while yes, it's a bridge, it just can't be the end all be all. Or maybe it can, and just society is just changing.
mm.
And connection is just gonna forever look different than what it looks like now until there's like an apocalyptic
Well, hold
event
on now,
where
hey.
apocalyptic event and now there's like no social media, there's no internet, there's no nothing.
The pendulum has swung out, and so it's got to swing back, but we gonna wait
Right.
on it until it swing all the way on
It might not be our lifetime, but like you said, it swung all the way in one direction. Gravity and science and physics tells us what goes up must come down.
Oh goodness.
Oh, I'll get into the next question because I know there's so much that we can talk about. But one big question that I have is what are your recommendations for having a healthy relationship with social media?
Well, recommendations, I guess, would go back to doing some psychoeducation around social media, just the letting the person know, like that we kind of hinted at algorithms. We haven't really used that word yet, but the algorithm is going to learn you and it's going to introduce things to you. Also, that
Mm-hmm.
algorithm can be influenced by outside sources. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not the only one. Like you said, how did you end up on the SIDS website? It's like they babies
Mm-hmm.
crying and it just
Mm-hmm.
decides. I know, I think we've all just been, freely moving around on social media and saw something we were talking about around, said, like, is this thing watching me and listening? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll move on from that.
Yeah, it's a whole other
So,
AI
uh,
conversation.
right. I'm seeing a word now that I would like to just highlight: digital hygiene, where that talks about
Mm.
intentional use, screen boundaries, platform detoxes, having your time off, like
Mhm.
actually log out of the platform. A lot of the smartphones now have timers that you can
Mhm.
set and permissions that you can set on your social media. There are, if you use it on your computer, there are, what do you call those? Plugins that you can put on your browser to help you be able to limit what you see, what it shows you, those kinds of things. Also, to talk about presence and mindfulness and
Mhm.
grounding so that the person, as you mentioned, Monique, doesn't necessarily have to go to social media to wind down from a day. They have some other tips and tools that
Mhm.
in their personal arsenal to be able to help them move
Mhm.
through not always like a challenge, like just
Mhm.
allow emotions to come in and go out. Because I think
Mhm.
sometimes social media, one, it helps them emotions get picked up and come in, but it also doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily help it flow out. They just kind of stay and rumbles on the inside. So that
Mhm.
person's still going to need something to help them get the information out. And
Right.
lastly, a point too that you made was to research.
Mhm.
Everything that you read is not real. They used to say that everything you see on TV is not real.
Mhm.
Everything you hear on the radio, as we keep going back to each new
Mhm.
invention. Same thing with social media. Everything that you
Mhm.
see and hear is not real.
Mhm. Mhm.
And even if it is, does it apply to you? Does it apply to you right now? How will you use it? Use wisdom.
Yes, and
Wisdom.
discernment.
Right. Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Monique.
I echo everything that Frederica said. And also just like knowing your why for social media. What is the reason that you're going on?
Mhm.
Is it to decompress? Is it to catch up with your family and your friends? Is it to like lurk on people's pages? Or like what are you going on there for? And just know that and don't get sucked into all the other stuff
Mm-hmm.
that comes with it. And just really
Mm-hmm.
developing those firm boundaries with social media, like you talked
Mm-hmm.
about, the timers and things like that, and limiting your intake. So
Mm-hmm.
social media doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just know your why for going on there, go on there,
Mm-hmm.
and then come right off and do something else. Go outside.
Mm-hmm.
The kids
Mm-hmm.
too, go outside, go play outside.
Yeah, go touch grass.
Yes.
I had to tell my daughter that yesterday. She was having a whole tantrum when we took her outside. I was like, Maya, touch grass. Like,
Mhm.
ground yourself back into reality here. It's fine. My recommendation, I'm going to smash my recommendation and the final question for today, unless we have a little bit more time left. But the one of the last question I was going to ask is what's one golden nugget that you want your client population to take away from social media? I'm going to
Mm,
kind of lump that golden nugget and my recommendation together. And this, I think I said it earlier, I alluded to it, but it has helped me have a more positive relationship with social media. I see it with my clients as well. And that's recognizing how true social media is.
mm,
Like, social media at this point, it's marketing.
mm,
You know what I mean? And there's this young lady who I now follow off of YouTube, but she debunks all of these influencers' videos and she talks
mm,
about how it's all fake. And after watching her videos, I actually gained a deeper level of appreciation. One for influencers, because I'm like, y'all are really dedicated, right? Like,
very.
y'all put the camera up and then get back in bed and then pretend like y'all are waking up and then you move the camera to the next clip and then you move the camera, you walk up the stairs, and then you show yourself walking down the stairs. This is some real dedication. Like, these morning routines and stuff, this is real dedication. But what that tells me, this is their job. And that's the main thing she always says. And her name's Hannah Alonso, I believe. And so if you're interested, she's amazing. But that's her biggest thing is like she wants to help people learn how to consume social media in a healthier way. And one of that is realizing like this is people's job to create content that influence you and makes you feel good. Like
Mm,
even looking at, and this might be some bias, even looking at trad wife content, she's like, how traditional are these women if they're getting paid millions of dollars to make the content telling you that they're traditional women? Like they're the breadwinners in their families. They're the ones who are working and putting in hours creating these videos to influence you to become trad wives, but some principles aren't that of trad. And so she breaks all of that down.
mm,
And from there, I think that's my biggest golden nugget in my recommendation is a lot of what you are watching is literally a marketing ad. It's meant to influence you to consume, to buy, to purchase something. Like, I don't know if
mhm,
y'all watch Operation Nikki or, Nikki's side of Clean Talk, where she buys all these little gadgets and gizmos. I'm like, this Swiffer is horrible, but she probably got paid like tens of thousands of dollars to make
mm.
her a video using this Swiffer like it's the best thing in the world. Like, they are not only they're getting the product for free, they're also getting paid to promote the product. So they're in the plus plus here, while we're the
Mhm.
negative negative. And so that's one thing that that's my biggest recommendation and my
Mm,
golden nugget is that things are not always what they appear to be, especially with relationships too, like you mentioned, Monique. Y'all are, these couple goals and things like that. And meanwhile, there's DV running rampant
Mhm.
inside of these
mhm,
relationships that you don't know about until the police report comes out
mm,
and mugshots are being plastered all over social media. You don't know. You're looking at their lifestyle thinking like, oh, I want a relationship like this, or I want to make these cute videos. I want to do this. And then there's destruction and chaos happening behind the
mhm.
scene. There's abuse. There's even if y'all can't tell I'm passionate about this topic. There's a documentary
Yes.
on Netflix. I believe it's on Netflix of this family in Arizona. It was an influencer family, and it has came out that the mom was psychologically and emotionally, I think maybe even physically abusing the children when they would not cooperate properly in the social media posts. And it's an entire documentary that has now followed them that's on social media. I haven't watched it yet, but I do plan to, that talks about the harm of social media, especially on teens, and having these teen and these kid influencers, how it creates an extremely toxic environment, and there's no regulations on child labor laws with
Mm.
that as well. And I don't know if y'all follow the Duggars and know the controversy of the Duggars, but one big one as it relates to them being on TV and social media is that while they were all minors, I believe maybe the dad wasn't paying their taxes. And then whenever they turn 18, now they got this enormous tax bill because they were not aware, right? They're kids. They're not aware that they need to be
Mm.
paying taxes on the income that they've earned. And now they're hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with the IRS because of this influencing culture. And so I know that's so much more I can say on that. Like I get fired up about this topic, but again, I've created a new appreciation for social media because I became aware of these things. And now I can watch stuff just because it relaxes me. Like watching y'all clean y'all's homes that are already clean. That y'all probably pay somebody to come in and clean before y'all clean them. I peep that too. Now I have a deeper appreciation for it. And so that would be my golden nugget. That would be my recommendation, is to just critically think about everything that you're consuming and realizing that it's all a marketing. At the end of it's not all, but at the end of the day, a lot of social media is about marketing and selling you something, and it's these people's job to influence you to market and sell and to buy certain products.
Mhm.
That's my spiel there. So for you, Frederica and Monique, what golden nugget would y'all give your client population as it pertains to social media use?
I would say don't fall for the highlight reel.
Mm,
A lot of things that people post is just, the good stuff that's happening in their lives. But that same day they could have posted a picture and they're smiling and happy and everything. But behind the scenes, they're crying. They may have gone through something terrible or whatever, but they don't
mm-hmm,
want you to see that. So they're posting all the good things. So just remember that like we're all human. We all go through struggles. Everyone's life is not perfect. So just try not to compare yourself to other people, or else you're just going to be unhappy. And like they say, comparison is the thief of joy.
with joy.
Just
Mm-hmm,
do your best to live your life the way you want to live it and not compare to everyone else.
mm-hmm, yeah.
To, I guess, to add to that, as society increasingly normalizes living online,
Mm,
we have to know that it is an influence. Society is influencing us to live online, but to also live in real life.
mm,
Do the things. Don't just watch someone else having a beautiful home. Look around and see what are some of the things that you can do to make your home be what you would
mm-hmm,
want it to be. Again, not in
mm-hmm,
comparison, but to create the environments and atmospheres that you want. Also, to let ourselves not be afraid of social media and technological advances, because they're going to continue to happen.
mm-hmm,
um, and the other piece of that is like to um, recognize that it does play a role
mm-hmm,
in the way that we navigate our world in a lot of ways. And so if we are experiencing changes in our mood, changes in the way that we perceive ourselves, our family members are noticing that not we're not showing up in some of the same ways that we used to, whether it is for positive reasons or not so good reasons. That asking ourselves, is social media, is the things that we're consuming, whether it's music or
mm-hmm,
social media or television or reality TV,
mm-hmm,
like let that be something that we actually consider, not just that background, like it's like in the background, a
mm-hmm,
background noise, because it really
mm-hmm.
could be adding or contributing or even causing some of the things that we are feeling.
Mm-hmm. And as you say that, Frederica, both you and Monique, another thing that comes to mind is I saw a post one time on social media, and it was like, what is the most normalized addiction? Like that outside of like actual substances.
Mm-hmm.
And it was social media.
Social media.
Like if you think, or not even just social media, our phones. I'll say our phones in general. Because if you think about how many accidents are caused because we were driving while distracted, whether that's on the phone or texting on the phone or on social media while driving, how many accidents have been caused because of that, right? Like little fender benders and things like that, or so much to where they have to have laws now where you can't text and drive. Certain counties, I know Denton County is one of them, where you can't text and drive, right? And so, and when you think about it and think about how much you're using it and think about, as a society, it's hard for us to sit down and watch a movie without feeling the need to have to pick up our phones and start scrolling, right? Because the habit of scrolling, we're not even scrolling like looking for information. We're literally scrolling just to scroll, like just to move our finger because that's what we have become so accustomed to. Um, and so when we think about it like that, it does paint a different picture. Like when we think about our phone usage and how much we are on our phones, not engaging in work, but how much, screen time we have, it paints a very interesting picture of our relationship with technology and how dependent we have become of it. Well, does anybody have any other last minute things relating to this topic that we would like to share for today before we head on out?
I think we've covered a whole lot.
I think this deserves a part two. Right. This deserves like a part 2, 3, 4, and 5. But nevertheless, I do want to go ahead and wrap us up for today. And so our next Ask a Therapist event, it looks like it's going to be held on, I'm checking my calendar right now. It looks like our next Ask a Therapist, oh gracious, excuse me. Ask a Therapist event is going to be held on June 2nd at 11:30 a.m. Please join us on the Eventbrite. We're on Eventbrite under Ask a Therapist for online events. Please feel free to join us there. We will have another fun and exciting topic to discuss with you all. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Thank everybody who joined in. Frederica, Monique, I know Ashley, you were there in the background as well. Thank you so much for you joining on too. And we look forward to seeing you at next month's event. Take care. Bye.